I think Wally's been on for a while.
Yeah.
Wally in Fort Meade, thanks for waiting.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Tracie. How's it going?
Hello. Good,
Pretty
thank
good.
you.
All right. Well, I've got limited time, so I'm just going to get straight into it. So I was calling to address theistic claims of objective morality. So if we take an example from the Bible, Exodus 20:13, "Thou shalt not kill," that is a clear parameter set forth by God.
I'd argue that it's not particularly clear, even if you read that as "Thou shalt not murder." But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess I'll leave some room in there to say that there's ambiguity. And then you go to 1 Samuel 15:3, where the order is coming down to go and slay all the Amalekites.
Yep.
Like including the children.
Yep.
Wouldn't you say that there's a conflict there?
Not
and
necessarily.
Wouldn't that kind of, no, not necessarily?
No, because so first of all, just in general, set aside the Bible. Specific rules override general rules. And so you could make a general rule of, hey, don't kill people except under these circumstances. And now you're not got a contradiction. You've got what you've got as a clarification. The commandment, "Thou shalt not kill" or "Thou shalt not murder," has generally been viewed as not "Thou shalt not kill," because that would apply to everything you eat and, blah, blah, blah. But "Thou shalt not murder." And murder is a specific legal construct of an unjust killing, It does not apply to war and self-defense and, the other things. I think there are other contradictions in there with regard to, "Thou shalt not murder," but I want you to go take over this land and slaughter everybody and run your sword through all the pregnant women. I think that is far closer to a contradiction. But I don't know what that has to do with the...
He was talking about objective morality.
The objective moral.
Okay, well, basically what I'm trying to get at is... Okay, you said when you were speaking about the context of "Thou shalt not murder," you were saying that it's a legal term, or it's more of a legal term. That's how you were defining it, anyways, in that context. Going into the concept of unjust killing, basically to end somebody's life unjustly. You wouldn't say, in that context, that killing infant children would be unjust.
I just said that.
That'd be considered war crime.
I literally just said that exact thing.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to attribute, okay. So then I misheard it then. That was my fault.
But here, let me help you out,
Okay.
Wally. Let me just see, because I want to make sure I'm following too, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But in a weird way, it almost seems like Matt might have helped you make your point, even though you may not have intended it. But it sounds almost like what just happened in this conversation is that there is what should be a clear command, and yet that clear command can be reinterpreted in a million different ways to allow for killing in many different contexts, right? So what you're basically saying is you've got this objective morality, which is "Thou shalt not kill," and then you've got like a billion exceptions to it anytime God decides He wants you to kill somebody.
See, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with objective morality. I've actually argued on behalf of it. I do have big problems with.
Well, I think he's talking specifically about the religious concept of it.
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that.
Go ahead.
So I have more objections to moral relativism and all the other things. The truth of the matter, though, is that all of the objections that religions raise when they start talking about secular morality are either not real problems or problems that they can't solve either. When they say, oh, if there's no God, if there's no objective moral standard, then you have no way of showing that you're right and somebody else is wrong. Well, guess what? That's true even if you think you have a God, because I don't accept what you and your God have to say about morals. You have to convince me with something other than I think that a God said this. And so they can't solve the problems either. And the truth is, for most versions of religious morality, it's not any more objective than anything they're complaining about, because ultimately you get to something that must be like divine command theory, that something is moral because God says so. Now they'll twist that and say, no, it's not about what God says, it's about what's consistent with God's character, and God's character doesn't change, except that, at least in the Bible, God's character definitely does change, and what his prescriptions are changes. So it's a big mess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the whole concept of God's character not changing just seems, to me personally, I know you just said this, but it seems completely asinine, especially when you're talking about you're going to lay specific parameters on how people are going to conduct themselves in society or on Earth in the context of when the Ten Commandments were given. But then you're not going to include any caveats. There's no specific for you to engage with other people. So when you give these broad thou shalt not kill, but then you're going to caveat it with later on, okay, you can go kill these people. It's okay for you to kill them because I said that you can kill them.
Yes.
So I mean, it seems like it loses the moniker of being objective, because it's at that point it's subjective to God's interpretation of what is okay.
Yeah, it almost seems like
okay
the only thing objective about it is the foundation, which is whatever God says goes at any given time.
This is why I've raised the issue many times. You can tell me what the Bible says or what you think the Bible says, but that doesn't tell me anything at all about what God says, if God says anything. You have to establish that link.
Yeah.
But this idea that that there are moral prescriptions within a particular religious text doesn't mean that they're right. There has to be some other way to establish whether or not this is correct. And so, this prohibition against eating shellfish or wearing, clothes of two different claws, and against, those are the simple things. And if we can't get the simple things right in your holy book, or we can't make any sort of connection to reality, what you have is this is not the thinking of an all-wise, all-powerful, perfectly moral being. This is the thinking of ancient people, 66 books written by a bunch of different individuals, and of course they're going to represent some of the best thinking of that time, but I'd like to think that we've been able to think even better in the intervening thousands of years since those things were written.
Well, and this is an interesting thing because we used to bring this point up in a different context, but like Abraham getting the command to kill Isaac, right? Mm-hmm. So the question would be, does God want people to kill their children, right? To just kill them for no reason? And most Christians, I think, would say no, that you're not supposed to kill your children according to God. And yet, what the example of Abraham and Isaac shows us is that when God comes along and says, kill your child, who has been a very good child, since you've had him, Abraham doesn't say, whoa, God, this is really weird. This is antithesis to what you've, told us that we're supposed to do as far as how to treat our children. What he says is, yeah, okay, let's get some wood and a knife and go up the hill with Isaac, right? I mean, the morality is simply whatever God says at any given time. And if God tells you to do something God said don't do yesterday, then you just go do it today because now this is the new normal.
And God told me that it's the end of the show.
Aww.
Okay.
My apologies
thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
Wally.